Okay, so we're going to talk about your setting your goals for this coaching session. So first, let's talk about what you taught in your lesson. So what was the topic of your lesson?
Okay, so we were talking about finding the volume of composed figures, so finding volume of prisms and pyramids that are put together.
Okay, and so usually you have a warm-up or spinal review, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what do kids do? How long does that usually take?
It usually takes about 5-10 minutes for them to do the warm-up, and I give them time to do the warm-up, and then we go over it, so about 10 minutes.
Okay, and then you usually practice problems or you're teaching previous knowledge that's going to apply to the new concepts. So
Yeah.
that's probably 10 to 15 minutes,
Yes.
give or take, just depending on that. You said a lesson with guided notes and then independent practice or work, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for the specific lesson that I have observational data for, I wrote down like how long you did each thing and then whether it had high or low engagement. So it was about 9 minutes of a warm-up. I thought that it had high engagement. I saw a lot of kids working. I didn't see very many kind of staring off into space. 2 minutes of thinking props. I think you were relating an older topic to a new topic. I think low engagement. I didn't see a lot of kids making a lot of connections. So a lot of kids were kind of like just sitting there quietly or not really doing anything. I had 22 minutes of cooperative learning with you doing guided notes and kids kind of working with you and working practice problems at the same time. 17 minutes of experimental learning. I thought but guided notes I did think had pretty high engagement, and I didn't see very many kids off task. It looked like they were pretty much at least following along with the notes and working on them. 17 minutes of experimental learning, worked independently. I think that this was the time of the most discipline kind of issues with kids talking and stuff, but I didn't think it had per se low engagement. I just think it was kind of like there were moments of high and moments of low, and then 10 minutes of IXL, which I thought was personalized learning, and that had pretty good engagement as well. So on a scale of 1 to 10, like how well do you think this lesson went, with 1 being like the worst lesson you've ever taught and number 10 being like the best lesson ever?
It'd probably be about a 6 or a 7. There could have been a little more connections made from previous material that they had already learned to be able for them to apply to the new material. So it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't the worst lesson either.
Okay, and what did you think, what were you most pleased about?
I always like doing the guided notes with the students because they, it helps them, and then us doing it together, it helps them during work, and then us doing it together, they have the opportunity to see problems being worked and having me to explain it at the same time, and we're all working on the same problem.
And I like how you do guided notes because it's like very colorful and there's a lot of organization there too. If you could change something to make it a little bit closer to a 10, what would you have done?
Student engagement can always be higher. It's always a constant battle of trying to keep them on task and doing what they're supposed to, especially if they struggle with understanding the concepts and making the connections from previous work.
Okay. What could your students have been doing differently to move it to a 10? Kind of the same thing with like just making sure that they're working.
Yeah, just making sure that they're staying on task, and that way they can figure out what they know and where they're struggling, and then they can ask me and I can hit those direct spots. But if they're not working on the problems, then they don't know where they're struggling, and I don't know where they're struggling.
Absolutely. And you kind of answered number 5, so you told me more about it. How do you think we can measure engagement? Would it be, through somebody coming in and observing you, maybe at the beginning of the goal versus the end of the goal, to kind of measure that? Or how do you measure in like that kind of growth?
I kind of look at what they knew before and then compare that to how much or what they know now, and I use programs like IXL to tell me that amount of growth to figure out how much they've changed.
Because I think definitely you can see growth by looking at how well they've excelled through the thing. Because if their engagement is high, then that means that we're probably going to see more growth than students that don't grow.
Right.
Do you want your goal to, you know, have that? Like, to be part of that goal, like higher engagement?
Yes.
Okay. If you could hit the goal, would it really matter to you? Like, do you think it would be beneficial to your classroom?
Yeah, I think it would give more, there would be the more engagement. If I can have more activities, you know, interactive activities on the computer versus just doing pencil to paper all the time, I think it would be more enjoyable for the students. So it would definitely make an impact.
What teaching strategies can you use to hit the goal? To hit your goal, sorry.
Just being able to use the resources on the computer a little more better to make more interactive activities for the students.
And what are the next steps in terms of making that happen, I guess?
Finding more activities online or coming up with my own activities and applying them into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. And making interactive activities is very time consuming, so I understand how that. Okay, so we did talk about in our original kind of get to know you meeting, we kind of talked about, you know, what your goals were, and you definitely talked about Google Suite and improving your knowledge in Google Suite.
Yes.
So I thought a good goal, and you know, let me know what you think. I want to create interactive activities with Google Slides or other Google Suite programs to improve student engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. Just becoming more efficient with it.
Yes. And Google Slides is a great thing because you can move a lot of things around, and you know, there's a lot of different activities out there, and it doesn't have to be something you always have to create. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel for sure. And there's a lot of activities out there. It's just kind of getting knowledgeable too with your understanding of the program, because if you don't understand the program, then it's hard to teach kids how to use the program as well. And when looking at this goal, I looked at something called PEERS, and PEERS is just to ensure that our goal is, you know, a very good goal. And I felt that, again, we kind of talked about the goal beforehand, but or what you wanted to see as your goal. And I mean, it's a very powerful goal. I think that, you know, looking at interactive activities as a way to, you know, cause your students to want to do them, because sometimes pencil and paper can get boring. So, and I mean, I deal with that in my classroom as well. So it's, you know, sometimes hard to get away from it. But interactive activities, I definitely think that it would make a difference in their lives, because I think they'd be more interested in it. It's definitely a very achievable goal, because student engagement can fluctuate very easily. And, you know, again, when they are interested in what they're doing, then it's definitely a reachable goal. I think it matters a lot to you. I think that you want your kids to, you know, have a good time in your classroom, and to, you know, to make it more engaging, because it makes it better experience for you as well.
Right.
Like I said, it's a very reachable goal, and it's definitely student focused, because we want our students to have high engagement, because like we said, high engagement usually leads to more growth of the students. And again, you use IXL to measure that a lot, and that's a good program to use. So some strategies that I think we can use to do the goal. We talked about Google Slides as part of your official goal, but I also think Google Forms. I know that escape rooms are very interactive, and that can be very good. And I use Google Forms to do escape rooms. And kind of strategies, working on that practice time instead of focusing on guided notes. I think your guided notes are very interactive as well already. Cooperative learning, so allowing students to do more things together, but again, using that kind of technology-based program, that's Google Slides or the Google Suite, to do it. Is there anything else that you feel you want to, you know, do, or anything that you think that you need to reach this goal?
No, that's pretty much all that I have right now, one goal at a time. So working on the having more interactive activities for higher student engagement.
Okay. Well, it's definitely reachable, and we'll get it, and we'll work together to do this.
That
For sure.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Goodbye.